So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to edit your photographs that you've taken of your various drawings and art pieces using a program that's free that you can find it online called Pixlr. So many of you have images that look something like this. You have drawings and screen captures and whatnot of the different pieces that you are making for your various classes. And as you can see, there are varying quality and could use a little bit of work before we submit it off to our instructors. So I'm going to show you right here what you can do is you can go onto google.com and you can type in Pixlr. You'll see that right there, Pixlr. Press enter, go over, and you'll find the website right here. So this is a free software that you can pay to use various add-ons. For what we need this program to do, we don't really need any of the enhanced features. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on the Playful X for Express, apparently, is how they're referring to it. And this little prompt will show up. You can go over to Open Image. And then what you're going to do is just select the image that you want to edit. So I'm just going to go with this first drawing here. Click Open. Depending on the type of camera you're using, or you might have an image that's like very large. As you can see, this is fairly large here. For most of the uses for our fine art students, you'll find that you can just go ahead and get away with using web and get a decent enough quality for what you need it to do. Click apply, and it'll go ahead and open up. So there's an order of operations here I like to follow. The first thing I like to do is adjust the cropping and the overall orientation of the image. So you'll see over here there's a crop tool. It's kind of the universal symbol for being able to crop stuff. And this little window will open up on this side. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to straighten this thing out. Now you get this little slider here that you can rotate around. And as you can see, I'm going to try to make it so that way that 1-inch border that the student had drawn, try to make that parallel to the edge of the frame. Then I'm just going to click and drag things in. Now your instructor might ask that you keep the border in which case that this image wouldn't really suffice because most of the border has been cropped out. But we're just for the sake of demonstration, we'll just go with it from here. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go over here, click here, and you'll see, boom. One thing you'll find is over on your right, this program actually has layer functionality and has a navigator. So, you can zoom in and out. As you can see, this little orange box gets smaller and smaller as we zoom in. You can actually click on it to move it up and down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make some adjustments. One thing that I don't like about this program is as soon as you click it open, you'll see that you have all these options available to you. To make things a little less confusing, you can click these little arrows and it'll collapse the different options available to you. So here we can manipulate color, light, toning, fill, and curves. For many of us, we don't have to go too deep into this program and the various sort of industry standard terms for editing images. But one thing I am going to do, because this is drawing that I'm editing, is I'm going to click on this black and white. And what that does is it just removes all of the warm tones coming in from the environment that the student photographed within. I'll click it on and off again just so you can see. Back and forth. Boom. What I want is this. Now, so obviously since it's black and white, I can ignore color. What I'm going to be primarily concerned with is the light feature. Now, we're going to stay up here for the most part. You'll see you have brightness, exposure, and contrast. Brightness it just brings the overall brightness of the image up. Pretty self-explanatory. Exposure, this is relating to more of a photography term, which has a bias towards bringing up the highlights. So you'll see there. It's starting to sort of wash out some of the shadows of the drawing. But we do want to bring it up just a touch. So I'm going to just bring up the exposure just a tad. And then that's the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate the contrast. Contrast compresses some of our value information, so that way our shadows become darker and our highlights become lighter. And basically, what it does is it just gives the drawing a touch more pop. Now, some of you might be thinking like, well, I shouldn't be enhancing my drawing, right? Uh, you know, this just is a courtesy thing. It just makes things easier for us to read what's going on and, kind of get a better sense of maybe what's happening in your lines. This student has a spectrum of lines that they're experimenting with. This outline here, it gets pretty dark. This line gets pretty soft. It's just by pumping up the contrast just a bit, and you can see it's just up by 22 points. It's not really going to make a huge difference. So as we move through, this drawing looks pretty good. It looks pretty much where I want to go with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click save, and you'll see the file name will be right here. There are limitations to what file types you'll be able to save things as. JPEG should work just fine for most of the things we're doing. You can dumb down the quality a little bit, but it's not a huge image, as you can see. So, I'll bump that up to 100%. Then last but not least, you can edit the height and width, but then again, like I said, it's not a huge image. So we'll just click download. Boom, goes down here, and it'll pop into my downloads folder right here. And there we go. Now we can just send this image on through Canvas like we would any other file that we might send to an instructor. So here we go. We got it locked and loaded. I'll do that again really quick just to demonstrate. As you can see from the amount of images we get like a whole spectrum of things going on. So we got students submitting, this is a screenshot of their camera roll on their phone. So obviously I would make an effort to crop that out if I were you. Just crop out this information. I don't need to know if the student needs to charge the battery. This is information we don't need, and we just want to see the image. The next thing I want to show is how to edit a color image. So I know some of you are taking painting and watercolor. So I got a watercolor painting, and you'll see there's all this tape information and stuff. The first thing I want to do is crop all of that out. So I'll go up to the corner, drag it down and over, bring this up and over, try to get as much as of that tape information out as possible, then click apply. So now we're sitting here, we got this painting. It's hard for me to say exactly how the original painting would have looked, but the nice thing is that we can go ahead and manipulate some of the color here. Now, if the painting's a little warmer than we intended, we can go ahead and mess with the temperature, cool it down and whatnot. I'm going to leave it as is, but that's where you would go to make it warmer or cooler. Then you'll see things like vibrance and saturation. Saturation is going to increase the intensity of the color just across the board. So all the colors are going to come up and get really, really intense. I would avoid making these dramatic enhancements unless for some reason the conditions that you were photographing within were a little desaturated. Maybe your lights were washing out your image or whatnot. Your vibrance is where you might want to stay. What vibrance does is it allows you to enhance the less saturated areas without affecting all of the already saturated pigment. So I'll go ahead and bump that up. You can see it just brings up some of the tones in the background a tad. All these warm oranges and yellows and whatnot are kind of staying the same. Here, I'll undo it and do it again. It's very subtle. So I would suggest vibrance for those of you who, just feel like your paintings just aren't quite looking the way you want it to look. I'll go ahead and click apply. This is all looking pretty good. Last but not least, I'll go over, I'll click save. Again, it's not a big image. Bring up the quality 100%. JPEG type, I could rename it if I wanted to. Click download. It goes to my download folder. And I know some of you have, PCs, so it's going to look slightly different, but you guys can navigate through your file explorer to find your downloads folder as well. So that's about it. Fairly simple. This would do a lot to just adjust. We need to adjust. It'll makes our lives a lot easier as instructors to be able to see exactly what you're working on. You'll see, you know, some of these images, are really, they could definitely have used some work or been photographed in different conditions. There's only so much you can really do with an image like this. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how I might edit this too. It's in cases like this, I would rather the student just rephotograph the work. But, desperate times, right? So here, crop it out, click apply. Come to the adjust. I'm going to click this black and white toggle here. So that gets rid of all the color information, so I'm not seeing all that, the warm tones of the environment. Then I'm going to go ahead and just enhance the brightness across the board. And then I'm going to bump up the contrast because I'm going to, nope, actually. So you'll see if I bring down this brightness, bring up the contrast. Yeah, that's a lot better. What was happening is the brightness, as you bump it up, you can start to see some of the marks, like in this area here, just start to go away. So in this case, just bumping up the contrast is going to help you out a lot. Just so that way we can see some of this detail work that the student has put in. And this is passable. This would do basically what I would. This would be decent enough that I can at least get a good idea as far as like what the student wanted to show. And, click save. Do all that. Download. Boom. All right, so I've gone through and done a few things here. I hope this is helpful. My goal is to just demonstrate this free program here. I think it's great that it exists, and I think it's pretty intuitive and user-friendly. So, yeah, go ahead and edit away. And yeah, so thankfully there are a ton of resources out there that we can utilize to keep our classes going. Working online and learning remotely, it can be kind of odd in a studio art environment, but there's so many tools out there now that and we're all very, very eager to make sure that we continue as planned, or as close to as planned as possible. And yeah, I hope everybody out there is doing okay, and y'all are safe. And like times like this that our creative outlets can really help us get through these trying times. So yeah, I hope you're all good. Hopefully we'll see each other on campus at some point. Thanks.